Hello, everybody. Welcome to our 2024 end of season recap. We cannot believe we're at the end of another season, done and dusted. We're so excited for this episode. I think consistently it's been one of our favorites every single season. There's just so much to go through. We'll be diving into highlights, lowlights, stats, and of course, going through our superlative survey results. So, first of all, just the biggest thank you to everyone who has listened this season. We haven't talked about this yet. I know Spotify Wrapped was a couple weeks ago, but like seeing you all tag us in that, it's just honestly our favorite day of the year for so many reasons, not least of which is connecting kind of listeners to faces and Instagram accounts and all of that. So thank you for that. And then also all of the amazing love and messages and just like kind words about the Lewis comment on our post/video was just so sweet, and seeing you all just be as happy for us as we were for ourselves is just like there's no better feeling. So thank you. With that, let's do it. I'm Tiggy.
I'm Chessa.
And I'm Sarah. Jumping into overall season highlights, lowlights, main thoughts, whatever our main takeaways are. And we're going to talk about a lot of this in more detail. But I think for me, looking back on the season, some of the really big things that stand out are just kind of the scope and scale of the Ferrari and McLaren turnarounds, to seeing where they were last year and in 2022 to then seeing them fight for the constructors title down to the last race and having Red Bull not even be in the conversation. It's kind of unfathomable even 8 months ago, and just goes to show how fast things can change in F1. And along with that came some really exciting wins. We were just so spoiled this season with all of the different amazing victories, but we had Charles in Monaco, of course. We had Carlos in Mexico, kind of a breakthrough moment for him with a really huge win. Piastri in Baku getting his first kind of solo, unaided, really definitive win. There were in total 7 drivers who won multiple races. Again, we were just so spoiled this season. It was amazing to watch. We also got to see so much young driver talent coming through in some of these big shakeups, like Colapinto and Lawson getting to race starting mid-season, when again, for years we had Oscar as an amazing rookie last year, but we really have had such a drought of getting young people and getting rookies into the sport. So really loved seeing that. And then, of course, have to mention Max and Red Bull. It's great getting to see Max have to fight for it, really for the first time since 2021, beyond just him fighting for it in an individual race. Needing to see him really pull out everything he had to win the championship was amazing. Drives like back of the grid to winning in Brazil. And then also just our personal highlights in Austin when we got to interview the V-Carb drivers, watch session in the Red Bull garage. That was unbelievable and definitely a highlight for me.
So cool. This was our first season. We have been in a garage during a session, which was amazing. We got to do that in Austin, and then I was in the Mercedes garage in Vegas, and just there's no cooler thing than like having the headphones on and listening to a live session in the garage. So I totally agree on that. I think for the season overall, it's the best season that since I've become a fan I've watched. Like, and I think it seems like a lot of people agree that it's the best kind of season in a long time. We've had such high highs. Sarah, you mentioned a lot of those low lows. Like, one thing we'll definitely talk about a lot is all of the kind of team and driver switch ups mid-season and swapping in rookies and like taking people out for their last race. Like, there was a lot going on, and we'll chat about that. But yeah, it was really fun to see some fresh meat, I think, as Chessa would call it, some rookie greatness out there. So we'll talk about that as well. But it's always fun to kind of mix it up and see such young talent battling against. We're still so blessed to have the caliber of drivers like Alonso, Hamilton, like these multi-world champions who are a little bit, on the end of their careers. Like, it's so fun to see young people battling against those types of drivers. So I think that was cool. My favorite races were Silverstone, when Lewis won for the first time in almost 2.5 years, I think it was. And then Brazil, we'll talk about that as well, but just the absolute chaos. A lot of you wrote that in the superlative survey as one of the highlights. But yeah, some other personal, I think, driver and other interviews we've done, I feel like we spanned so many cool people and series and topics, and did a lot more on like sustainability and women, which I thought was really fun to learn about and to dig into this year. My personal highlight over the summer was going to the factory visits. So McLaren and Mercedes, and just stepping inside an F1 factory for the first time was so cool. Diving into Formula E was super fun. And then just shout out to all of you for the community that we all have built and sticking with us through the rebrand, which was a little bit of a turn throughout the season. But we so appreciate you all being here and being in the Discord and showing up to our meetups and our watch parties and all of that. So thank you.
Second everything that you said. I don't know if this counts as a season highlight, but like the season started on the best note of the news from Lewis to Ferrari. And I think that kind of like set us up to expect big shakeups and big news throughout the whole season. And it did not disappoint. And like the season really started getting good for me. And I have this extremely vivid moment of the three of us crowding around the bar at the Australian GP watch party before they had put it up on the big screen right as Max DNF'd, and we were like screaming and jumping over each other. And like obviously it was a fluke that he DNF'd. It wasn't like we weren't seeing everything that was going to happen later on in the season, but to me that sticks out so much in my mind and is like such a fun kickoff for what was going to be an incredible season. I think like the Lando win in Miami was another really big moment to you when we were dancing to that DJ. What's his name again?
Cox, baby.
Oh, hell yeah. Like just having and feeling so elated that this was really happening. And I think everything from there was just really, really fun for us. And I think, on a personal note, like for me, meeting Checo and interviewing Checo was incredible. Our time in Austin was just such pinch me moments. We got to meet so many of you throughout the year, which I think is always really special and really fun. And just hearing how y'all have connected yourselves through this community. And just another big one for me was the merch. Like it was so fun to make. It was such a process. It was so much time and it was so hard. And seeing you all love it really makes us happy. And the photo shoot we did was
that photo shoot
with my brother-in-law and us just being so annoying to him. Shout out to Dan if you're listening.
We're in these like baby tees in freezing New York weather, taking pictures outside. It's so fun. What a blast.
Jumping into some stats. So we love kind of looking at stats across the whole season because there are just some great ones, always fun to see what sticks out. So 24 different drivers participated in when there are 20 slots because of our mid and late season replacements. And so we had Logan Sargent replaced by Franco Colapinto, Daniel Ricciardo replaced by Liam Lawson, Esteban Ocon replaced for the last race only by Jack Doohan. And then we also had Ollie Behrman, who stepped in for Sainz and K-Mag at varying points throughout the season.
For pole sitters, we had 5 different pole sitters, which is always really fun. That's a quarter of the grid. I guess not if you count those other 24, but of the original 20. We had Lando and Max tying with 8 pole positions each, which was an interesting stat for me to look at because I just assumed that Max had more because Lando had so much trouble on the starts. But hopefully that won't be.
Think about how much flack he got for his starts. Like the only reason he was able to get that much flack was because he was on pole so much. We just like don't remember it because
that is true. That is true. Other pole sitters were George, Carlos, and Charles. Notably not Checo in the Red Bull, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And Max had the first 7 poles of the season, and then Lando had 6 in the back half of the season when we also had more action from George and Ferrari. So that's a very stark visualization, a reminder of the sort of like rapid downfall of the Red Bull cars / the amazing operations that McLaren, Red Bull, and I guess Mercedes to a certain degree were running.
For wins, we had 7 different winners, which is not quite half of the grid, but it's almost there. So Max, of course, had the most wins with 9. Lando had 4. Charles had 3. Lewis had 2. Oscar had 2. George had 2. And Sainz had 2. So everyone who won a race won more than one, which is so cool. For podiums, there were 9 different drivers on podium. So all of the winners above, plus Checo, who had 4 podiums at the early part of the season. And then Gasly and Ocon had 1 each, both in Brazil. The
Alpine
double
snipper
Alpine
cells.
podium. We love that.
For fastest laps, Lando had the most with 6, which I think kind of tracks what we would have expected. And then the other fastest laps also include the usual suspects. So Max, both Mercedes, both Ferraris. In addition to the wins, this is another example of a stat where it's both Ferraris, both Mercedes, both McLarens, and Max in terms of wins and
And not
fastest laps,
Checo.
and just Checo missing from the equation. A few fun, more random ones for fastest lap were Ocon in Austin. I did not remember that. K-Mag in Abu Dhabi, closing it out on a high. And then, of course, Danny Rick's absolute glory lap in Singapore for his last
Yes.
race. So sad.
The
I
only
forgot.
send-off they really gave him was a fastest lap.
Seriously.
This is like the season of
tragic.
the anti-send-off. I don't think like anyone, the only person that got a good send-off was Lewis. Rightfully so, but still. For DNFs, we have Albon wins with the most retirements at 6, and Checo is a close second at 5 DNFs for the season. And we have to give an MVP shout out to Oscar. He's the only driver with no DNF, so he finished every lap this season.
For most laps completed, this is always a fun one. Oscar and Lando, the McLarens, take the win here. Oscar did every lap this season with over 1,400. Lando was a close second with also over 1,400. So they were very close to each other. And most laps led, of course, Max won this one by far with 560, and Lando was second with 271.
And next, who cost their teams the most money in terms of crash damages? And we should note that these are very rough estimates because this, of course, is not public information, but just kind of tracks some general estimates here. So Checo is guesstimated to be at number 1 with nearly $5 million in damage. Never forget that completely unnecessary Monaco crash up the hill for like P19 and P20.
Oh my God.
R.I.P.
And then Albon with 4.6 million. Colapinto up there with over $3 million, really just as we saw at the back end of the season. Williams having horrible luck with those crashes. Then Russell and Sainz with both over 3 million. And we have to give an extra special shout out to Gasly here, who ended the season with $0 in damage. That's actually such a great stat. And I feel like something that really isn't appreciated as much, but teams just need to be able to rely on drivers who can get the car around the track at the end of the day.
100%.
Yeah, like even if you're not scoring points, like at least don't be costing them money.
Right, at least it's not negative. Like if you're not going to score
Yeah.
points, then don't also cost money.
And I think that was
rough
like
back there. Like it's not easy not to crash. Like it's chaos in the midfield. So
I feel like most of the time when I watch a first lap or watch close wheel racing and look at the replays, a lot of times my first thought is just how did more people not crash? Like it looks like on every first lap, every turn 1, there'll be cars within 4 inches of each other.
Yeah.
So
and crazy. I feel like the expensive / no points combo was the nail in Logan Sargent's like metaphorical coffin there because he was expensive, but like you gotta punch above your weight there. Okay, last really fun stat is penalty points. First of all, we can't forget the moment that K-Mag became the first driver to become banned for a race by reaching that 12-point threshold. That was in September. Thankfully for him, because he reached it and served the ban, he his points reset back to 0. So at the
just in time for him to drive in hypercar.
Yeah. So at the end of the season, we actually had Alonso and Max tied for the most penalty points. They both have 8 penalty points. And the thing is, they don't expire at the end of the season. They expire from the time that they got them. So their first points will be expiring. For Fernando, it'll be at the end of March in 2025. And then for Max, it won't be till the end of June. So he has to go the first half of next season and not get 4 more points. Else he'll be in trouble.
That's a great stat because I feel like that might be difficult for him.
And obviously the news is already like Max nears race ban and future season. I'm like, everyone relax. Like it's fine.
Max would love a race ban. He would just hop on the sim and like literally spend hours and hours and hours back to back. Or maybe he'll line it up for when LVP is due.
I was literally going to say that.
And just take the race off.
Also just tracks it being Alonso as well. That just I feel like Alonso has just not been in the conversation that much this season, and this completely made tracks.
What is interesting to me though is you would kind of think that penalty points like the rookies would be more prone to getting penalty points because
So true.
they obviously maybe don't have as much experience and maybe would drive more recklessly or don't know the rules as much. But it's like these kind of legends who are incredible drivers who
I
I guess,
know. I think it follows that you get penalty points when you like stop caring, and rookies
yeah,
care the
you're
most.
just exerting your dominance.
Okay, let's go into our season MVPs. I mean, there's like so many, we could go forever here, but when I was just like right off the bat thinking of them, I think it's a really obvious one for all of us is McLaren. And again, we cannot emphasize that we were the reason that McLaren won the constructors because we were in the garage with them in Austria last year. No, but all jokes aside, it's been so fun to just watch them along this journey. It's incredible. And I think in classic Chessa fashion, I'm super excited about all the new meat, as we would say. Like, silly season was great. It was like an extended season long silly season. We have so many rookies next year. It's just going to be so novel and fun. I literally can't wait.
Yeah, I have to 100% second McLaren. And I think the drivers, I would argue, and I think we've all kind of agreed on this, but correct me if I'm wrong, that they probably do have the strongest driver pairing on the
Yeah.
grid. It's not just the drivers, like it takes such a team effort. And I think the leadership that McLaren has shown, whether it's like Zach Brown or Andrea Stella, like coming in and doing incredibly well, they've like hired great drivers. They've poached technical talent that's really good. They've expanded their marketing and partnerships like 5,000 fold. It just sort of feels like this master plan that has been in the works for a long time. And we're sort of like seeing the fruit being
26 years.
born, which I think is so cool to watch. So yeah, I mean, obviously you give it to the drivers. I totally agree, Chessa. Seeing Lando win in Miami, I think was like such a highlight MVP for me for that team. But I think it's like the team more broadly just seems to be working really well. We'll see how Papaya Rules fares. But I also have to give Max an MVP shout for, I know, you're welcome, Sarah. But I totally agree. Like driving to a world championship in a car that is no longer objectively the best. And we can debate forever on how good Checo is versus like how bad he is and whether it's the car or it's really just him being bad. But like I do think to some degree he showed that this Red Bull car is not a great car at the moment, and Max just like hid that for most races, and I just think that takes so much talent. So kudos.
Maybe we have to give Checo an MVP for being the canary in the coal mine.
Exactly. Checo's the whistleblower on track.
For me, I 1000% second everything, agreed on McLaren leadership and having that long term vision, like Zach realizing that he needed to fight for Oscar when Oscar was announced by Alpine and was a completely unknown rookie, and it caused a ton of upset. And clearly, it was the right decision. It was a phenomenal choice to invest in both Oscar and Lando from really young ages. And also, shout out to Fred Vasseur, because I feel like similarly, I really feel like Ferrari has been on a much better trajectory this year. And of course, it's hard to tell how much you can attribute to a team principle, and changes take time, but it really feels like Ferrari has been a much tighter, cleaner operation this year. And I don't know if anyone would have really expected them fighting for constructors up to the last few races. And definitely second, the Max. I think now he has cemented himself more as a world champion caliber driver and a world championship winner, no matter the machinery he's given. Whereas I think critics could say for the past couple of years, oh, well, anyone would be winning in that car, which even Zach Brown said this year. And then Max went up to him and said, oh, thought I could only win in the fastest car. So I think he's kind of silenced a lot of his critics with that. And then shout out to Oscar Piastri. I feel like he drives at the level of a lot of these guys who have been on the grid for 7 or 8 years, and it's his second season being an incredible number 2, the best number 2 on the grid, maybe fighting for a number 1 spot next year. We'll see, but really amazing stuff from him.
100%. I was looking at our superlatives for a little teaser. I was looking at our superlatives last year, and I think he was ranked the most improved driver, and he was not ranked the most improved driver this year because I think people just assumed he was already starting at such a high baseline, which is crazy for only his like second year.
He's not
driving.
Rookie material. Yeah. Like Logan was a rookie last year, and like to me again this year he was a rookie, but Oscar's way beyond that.
Yeah, 100%. So season LVPs, I think we've already hinted at this a little bit, but I just think the unceremonious driver goodbyes and midseason drops were so rough as fans to watch, and just
Brutal.
made you feel so bad for these drivers and these teams. It's just awkward for everybody involved. Like, whether or not you agree with like replacements in general because of performance, like I don't necessarily disagree with that. Like, these teams, there's so much money on the line for results, and there are only 20 seats. So like I understand midseason drops if they're valid, but I think just being more transparent about that, and when you know that a driver who's raced for years and years is going to lose his spot on the grid, like give that person a proper send off. I really think
Like a
about Daniel
public one.
Ricciardo.
Yeah.
I think about less Logan, but that also was really tough. And then yeah, Bottas, Ocon. I mean, I know he's not like leaving the sport, but just dropping him for the last race was rough. I felt like we talked about in the Abu Dhabi recap, Carlos kind of got the short end of the stick there. So I thought that was just all around not very well done. And then we've talked a lot about this, but the FIA and stewarding drama and just all of the penalties kind of
Yeah,
being
that's a
handed
good
out
one.
arbitrarily and not feeling like we don't have full-time stewards. It's kind of done on a voluntary basis, where it's a lot of like ex-F1 drivers or people who have strong opinions and are not necessarily unbiased. So thinking about how to standardize that, I think, is a project for the FIA.
Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning F1 championships, is sometimes also what you need to keep your beloved car running day in and day out. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're looking for speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. They have over 122 million parts for your car. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And they have eBay Guaranteed Fit, which means your part is guaranteed to fit your car every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're about burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home some huge wins. So keep your car alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply.
For me, I think agree with Tiggy on the Ricciardo departure, and that to me kind of ties into the Red Bull driver program second seat situation more broadly. I think it's nice to see that they tried to stick with Checo for so long, but it really kind of reached a point of no return and feels like the inevitable was really prolonged to the extent of probably hurting the team long term because they missed out on Carlos. And I said this in the Abu Dhabi recap, but I feel like they really should have snapped up Carlos when they had the chance. And now looking at their second seat, it's just a weird situation where the whole kind of point of VCARB as a team was supposed to be developing this junior driver program, but Yuki's been there for years and is probably going to get passed over for the second seat. And the whole system combined with Ricardo getting booted midseason just feels like it isn't really working. And I agree. I think Ricardo maybe was the low light of the season for me. He has done so much for the sport as someone who got into the sport through Drive to Survive. Daniel is one of the drivers who was first most kind of open to American fans and welcomed so many people into the sport, and he deserved so much more than what he got.
Those are all really good. Here. I think for me, Checo, Sarah, you said it perfectly, so I'm not going to belabor the point, except for the fact that I was like hot taking that he was going to get dropped like every race because it really felt like they had to, and that did not happen. And then my second LVP is just Stake for like really not getting that many points at all. Like getting one driver to get points one time in one race, I think is just really demoralizing for the team. But we'll have to give like a runner up shout out to their social media team for keeping the vibes happy and elated and good.
Well, that's a perfect segue into our listener survey because, spoiler alert, Stake wins on social media. Best social media admin. Last on the grids, number one in our social media hearts. All right. Diving into the listener survey. We had hundreds and hundreds of you fill this out. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's always so fun to hear what you all think. Obviously, we talk to each other on what we think, but it's just so fun to see what you guys think. And yeah, let's dive in. So, best overall driver. Unsurprisingly, we have Max Verstappen coming P1 with 45%, Lando Norris 19%, and Charles Leclerc 14%. Some honorable mentions that got at least one vote, which I thought were kind of funny. Nico Hulkenberg, Ollie Behrman, and Logan Sargent. I'm not sure if some of these were done for the bit. I could see Nico Hulkenberg.
Nico Hulkenberg is actually a great one. For most improved, we had Lando with 40%, Oscar with 23%, and then Pierre Gasly with 14%. I love that lineup. I think that's actually quite similar
great.
to what I would personally choose. We were literally just talking about in our Abu Dhabi recap how it feels like Lando has matured this year from a driver where you're kind of worried they might hit the wall when they're in P1 or can't hold it into turn one to just being world champion material and feeling confident that he'll win a championship in the near future. And last year was Oscar, Lando, and Yuki in that order. So it's really interesting.
This least improved one is also not that surprising. Checo at 52%, Lance at 29%, and Logan at 7%. And Tiggy, God bless you for pulling in the stats from last year. So this is the same three as last year. So Checo, Lance, and Logan. But Checo moved from third last year to first this year of least improved. My God.
And a very commanding P1 in that category with over half the vote. So tough. Most likely to be a future world champion. I love this one. So Lando Norris comes in at 45%, Oscar Piastri 34%, and Charles Leclerc at 18%. In contrast to last year, actually Oscar was first with 41% of the vote, then Lando, then Charles. So still same podium, but I think that's interesting. I mean, I guess it goes, Sarah, to your earlier point, like Lando just kind of maturing this year and showing that he can be the caliber of a world champion driver. But yeah, I think Oscar, both those drivers have a really good shot.
Who is kind of conspicuously missing, who we have not talked at all about, is
George. That was a write-in for a couple people, which not for this category. Well, he was voted in this category, but one of the write-ins was like, George Russell had an incredible season and no one is talking about it.
And including us, we are also guilty.
We are the problem.
Like, why is he forgettable? Because he is an amazing driver, but you don't hear him talked about as much.
Maybe that's why he was trying to get into a fight with Max, get into the discourse.
Exactly.
I feel like it's hard when you're it had gone so exciting with the Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull fight. And I feel like when you're doing a great job, but you're really grinding it out for like P4, P5, it is kind of just this thankless territory that he was stuck in.
Yeah. And I guess Lewis holds such a big share of people's headspace
Especially
and
for
energy.
his last season.
Yeah. It's like, it's hard to sometimes focus on the teammate, you know?
Yeah. For most likely to retire / lose their, why do I keep getting
Give
these
you
ones?
all one guess.
Checo at 82%, and then the next highest was Lance Stroll, but he only got 3%. So this was incredibly overwhelming.
Wow.
Oof.
Ugh. When's it happening? Sarah, what do you think? When's it happening?
I think in the next couple weeks. I think at this point, I think they were letting the season end. Christian made a comment after Abu Dhabi saying, and Checo kind of made a comment too of, we're going to have talks the next couple weeks and figure out what's going to happen. They cannot drag this out anymore. It's just getting kind of wild. And I feel like everyone needs closure, including Checo. It's just, again, brutal that he's been kind of being strung along and there's no formality to any type of announcement. It's such a hard situation. And I think Chessa was saying on the Abu Dhabi recap, every race, there's all these rumors of, they're waiting to see his performance at X race when
I don't know what I was doing.
and then just ends in DNF. And it's just so brutal. I'm sad. I'm sad for Checo too. We've been kind of joking about it, but it is just, he's a really talented driver. He's had some incredible seasons, a really long career in F1 through multiple teams, and it's just horrible that it's ending on this note.
Someone wrote in our hot takes, Checo is not a bad driver. And I was like, the fact that someone has to put that in as a hot take is so sad.
Wait, my heart actually just broke. Sarah's literally clutching her heart right now on video.
So tough. In some happier news.
Better news for best overall team. We had McLaren with 71%. That is a very dominating victory. And then Ferrari with 25%. So, wow. Sorry, Red Bull. A distant P3.
It's tough.
For best social media team, Stake at 28%. Last in the charts, but first in our hearts online. They did such a good job there. Like between Bottas, it's mostly Bottas, I would say. but Joe held his own there too, but it was all really fun to watch. And then Ferrari got 17%, McLaren at 15%, and Red Bull at 10%. Honestly, F1 social media just popped off this year. It gets better and better every year. So I think honorary mention to everyone who was involved here.
For best livery, we had Ferrari at 29%. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. It's like comes with the territory of being Ferrari, I guess. McLaren at 21%, which I found fascinating, and then Alpine at 17%. People do like the pink. Although, remember pink camo gate back in the beginning of the season? I mean, I love McLaren and I love the papaya, and they did some cool things this year, but I was actually kind of surprised to see that MP2.
For best race this year, we had Brazil for the chaos of the rain and the incredible surprise podium. A lot of votes for that. We had that Max insane drive from the back and the double Alpine podium. And then, of course, Silverstone for Lewis's first win in 2.5 years. And the third really big one was Monaco. Again, of course, Charles's home win, breaking the curse, his iconic dive into the harbor with Fred Vasseur. There were some. Those are all three. Those, I think I would agree on 3 best races.
So good. For best season radio, a lot of people liked Simply Lovely, which I think is Max's new trademark radio. And then
I think they were actually referring to Lando's Simply
Lando.
Lovely. How could I forget the sassy version of the Simply Lovely?
I'm realizing I forgot to tell you all, my boyfriend got me an ugly Christmas sweater that is a picture of Max, and it's Christmas themed, and it's simply having a simply lovely Christmas time.
Oh, so cute. Why aren't you wearing it?
Thanks. Other radio was Yabba Dabba Doo. Was that George?
George.
So good. And then the final, It's Hammer Time from Bono Lewis.
Oh, that really tugged at the heartstrings. The best press conference moment. This one's always a fun one because we get to see driver characters shine here. And the one who shined the most was Max. I swear, I feel like he got 80% of the write-ins here. So people loved the "If my mom had balls, she'd be my dad" from Miami. The swearing press conference, of course, and then him just refusing to answer and staying silent, and just Maxisms, I guess, all around are good. There was definitely some recency bias as well on this one with the Christian and Toto, Terrier and Wolf debate, and then, of course, the Max and George debacle and all of their arguments. So we had some good inputs for that.
For best merch drop, a lot of votes for the Ferrari Miami drop. Those are always really fun, the Miami specific ones.
Those are the blue hats, right? Like those are the blue kit. I loved those. Those sold out basically immediately.
The blue kit was really fun. It was a great kind of shade of blue too. The +44 drops from Lewis. The Peanuts collab, Peanuts times F1 drop. I think I might have missed that one.
Yeah, in Vegas, they had Snoopy and like the cast of Peanuts characters. It was like I don't know if it was F1's first ever merch drop, but it was like very much a push towards like a D2C merch thing, and they collaborated with Peanuts and Snoopy.
Love it.
Fun.
It was actually very cute. I had to struggle not to buy one of those in Vegas.
And there were some shout outs to the martini tees and helmet sweatshirts from Paddock Project.
Love you all.
And special mention to Tiggy's really cool Gen Z younger twin sisters who gave us the idea to turn the martini icon into a baby tea. So you can thank them.
Keep me young.
Yeah, keep us all young. Keep us all cool. Okay, best celebrity GP attendees. We had a lot of Terry Crews because why the heck not? That's amazing. Paul Mescal. I don't know if I would have put him on my list, but that's good. And then someone wrote Tiggy because Lewis Hamilton knows her name.
It's so funny.
You're a celeb now.
So cute. Thank you, Lewis, for catapulting me into no amount of fame, but at least
next up is Kim Illman's, what's it called? Women of the Paddock. Tiggy's on it next year, calling it now.
We'll see about that. All right, let's do some hot takes for 2025. They are fun. So we just selected a few here. For World Drivers' Championship, we had a couple hot takes or a couple options here. So Lewis was one of them. Carlos with Williams. That is hot.
Very
Charles and Piastri. Someone said that Williams was going to make a McLaren level comeback next year, which I'm on board for that.
I'm 100% behind that. 100%.
I don't know how likely that feels. And then another Williams one, Carlos will be better in Williams than Kimi in Mercedes, which is kind of a fire take. Verstappen will retire before the year even starts.
Whoa.
And related to what we were talking about before, Max takes a paternity leave or at least is there for the birth and misses a Grand Prix.
Fair.
Maybe coinciding perfectly with his race ban.
Yeah, right. Like we said.
Another Red Bull take, Red Bull and Max Verstappen do not win any of the championships. I very much see that as possible.
Yeah,
the Checo isn't actually a bad take, of course. Sauber won't be last. And then if Yuki gets passed over for the Red Bull seat, he'll leave the team and go somewhere else.
That's a good one.
Question of where. Obviously, the Honda connection with Aston Martin in 2026 could be interesting, but I don't know where else.
I feel like Yuki's going to burn it down if he doesn't get that seat.
Which
it's looking like he's not, according to kind of what people are saying. Will Buxton was saying after Abu Dhabi that it really looks like it'll be Liam that gets it.
Yeah, I think so too. We got some really nice write-ins from the surveys as well. So we selected a few to read out. Someone said, I loved the season so much. It truly showed what F1 is about, from first-time winners to final bows. This season showed that it's not over until it's over. It showed the highs and lows of sport and continue to surprise the F1 fans over and over again.
It's so beautifully written. Whoever wrote that. Wow.
Another one we had was, I'm so interested to see how Hamilton and Leclerc are as teammates. Me too. It'll be intriguing to see how Ferrari handles having two amazing drivers and the pressure that the team receives by bringing Hamilton in. That's also
Tiggy, what do you think about this?
So curious. I think it might be tough, and I think it might be contentious. And I sort of think that Ferrari probably promised Lewis Hamilton a lot, not just money, but like a lot, maybe prioritization in some way, shape, or form. Even though Charles has always been sort of the Ferrari golden boy, I do think that the tables may turn with Hamilton in the mix. And I think that's going to be really tough for Charles to swallow. And I don't know, but I think they're going to go head to head, and hopefully they can work together well to at least win the Constructors' Championship and get Hamilton his 8th asterisk and Leclerc maybe a P2. That's my goal.
We're going to need, if anyone's listening and wants to get creative, please write in a creative version of Papaya Rules, but for Ferrari. Thank you.
I think it's going to be absolute fireworks. I agree. I think there's no situation in which we ever see two drivers of that caliber when there's not a clear number one not absolutely erupt in flames. Charles and Vettel was famously a disaster, and I think that was even kind of lower stakes in a sense, because to Tiggy's point, there weren't probably promises made to get him to leave Mercedes. I think close second, I think there will be fireworks on McLaren as well, probably, because I think they'll probably at least publicly say they're starting out this season even on driver prioritization. Tiggy, I haven't totally processed this yet. The season is now over, so are you fully a Ferrari fan now? Like, how are we addressing this? Have you bought merch yet?
I have not bought merch yet. Someone DM'd us saying they're going to get me the Lewis Ferrari hat whenever it drops, which was so cute. Yeah, I mean, I'm a Tifosi. That doesn't mean I'm not a Mercedes fan, but like, it's the new me. I'm a Tifosi. As of what, yesterday?
We have to clip that. That's so funny. Other really amazing write-ins. We had George Russell had a brilliant season and no one appreciated him. Very true. The letter to the FIA was incredible, and I need more drivers versus FIA drama.
That's a great one.
Really good one. Bottas off the grid and without points is a tragedy. I want Nico Rosberg to be Lando's manager and to fight Andrea Stello to treat Lando right.
Honestly, that is so rogue and so funny.
And so niche. Someone said the race I cried the most, Abu Dhabi. The race I shouted the most, Austria. The race I was the most happy, Miami GP.
Yeah, these were so fun to read, and there were so many nice write-in comments and kind words about the community and you all enjoying the podcast and everything. So just thank you again for listening and for being a part of this. And can't believe it's been our 3rd season. So crazy.
Wild. And of course, we also have to talk about F1 Academy wrapping up its 2nd season, its 1st season co-located. So kind of its first really major debut season, and so much happened. Abby Pulling really dominated the season, a total of 338 points. She had a phenomenal 9 wins, which is well over half the races. So really the Max Verstappen of F1 Academy, we might say. But Dorian Pont and Maya Woog also really did bring the fight to her and finished P2 and P3 with 217 and 177 points, respectively. Dorian had multiple wins. She had 3. And just last weekend at Abu Dhabi, Maya had a huge maiden victory at the season finale. So that was really exciting. And a fun fact is that all of the 15 permanent drivers scored points this season, unlike F1, which is awesome to see. And Chloe Chambers was the 4th driver who won a race.
And she's American, so love to see that. This year we had 15 cars, but next season the Academy will be expanding to 18 cars with the addition of High Tech as a team. And first off, Abby, as the winner of the championship this year, now has a fully funded GB3 seat for next season, which is incredible. And there are already some new exciting names that have been announced that'll be entering the grid for 2025. We have Nina Godman with Alpine, Alba Larson with Tommy Hilfiger, and she's only going to be 16 at the start of next season. So that's like unfathomable. Like, good for her.
Go girl.
And one super exciting update for next year is that, of course, F1 Academy races will be co-located with F1, one of which will be Vegas, which is very, very exciting.
So fun. I think it's our finale, which is going to be even better.
Even better.
Okay. What are everyone's hot takes for 2025? I want something out of left field here.
Honestly, the Carlos and the Williams one, I'm going to steal because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've had like a little like recurring, like I like Williams. And I think with Carlos and the Williams, I'm going to become a Williams fan now.
I sure hope that for them. I really do.
We're going to have a great comeback. Even if they don't win, I just see them like really bursting onto the scene with all this energy, putting their stake in the ground, and then 2026 onwards, hopefully they can maintain that.
All right, Sarah, you're not going to like this. I don't think Max is going to finish the top 3 in the Drivers' Championship.
Wow.
Yes.
Flaming hot.
It is flaming hot, but
I would have given you like P2, but not in top 3. Wow. I agree. I think Max will not win the championship based on current car trajectory and just the amount of competition, I think, from both Ferrari and McLaren. I think Oscar is going to outperform Lando.
Okay.
I like that, Sarah.
And do you think the team will allow that to happen?
I think so. I think, though, it would require Oscar really asserting himself at the start of the season, because I think when someone's already kind of the number 2 driver, and then if points are kind of even or it's not a commanding lead already, I think it gets much more difficult. So I think I'll have to come out of the gates really strong. But them being on top is so fresh. They're not really in a position like with Red Bull where it can just be super clear from day one who the priority is. But I think Ferrari I'm most fascinated by, because I just don't see a world in which they get along. I could be wrong, but I don't see how it's possible. I feel like, that's my other hot take, is there's going to be a Nico Rosberg Lewis in Barcelona style Ferrari crash of them.
Oof. God, I hope not, please.
All right. Well, with that, the 2024 season comes to an end. I feel like that TikTok sound. Isn't that what they say? I cannot believe that we had such an incredible season and that it's finally coming to an end. It honestly feels like it flew by in a blink of an eye, but we're so happy that it ended how it did, I think, for the most part. And yeah, thanks for sticking around, and we'll see you guys soon.
We'll catch you in the new year after we take a little break for holidays.